Hi, hello again, friends, and welcome to another edition of the Racing Angle. This one titled Toyota Titans, episode 15. Can you believe it's already been 15 episodes of the Racing Angle? Man, that is hard to believe, but we're thankful for it. We thank you for tuning in, and we thank producer Peyton for being back there on the ones and twos. We're grateful for that, and of course, she'll be a part of the show a little bit later on. All right. So again, we're coming off a great Vegas weekend, and there's a lot to talk about. A little time to get to it. We'll talk throwbacks. We'll talk Daniel Die. We'll talk Vegas. We'll preview this weekend, and just so much more, and whatever else comes to mind. So what do you say we get into our lovely race week rewind? All right, Race Week Rewind. We're coming off of beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada, the land of the Midnight Idol, Wayne Newton. You know, it's a huge Elvis place, but it's a huge racing place. I think I got to sneeze. Pardon me on that if you're listening to the podcast or watching, but gotta do what you gotta do. And so sorry about that, but it's the land of Wayne Newton. It's become one of the staples of NASCAR. I believe Mark Martin won the first race in Las Vegas. Don't quote me on that though, but I think that is indeed the case. All right, but let's not talk about Wayne Newton, Elvis, Mark Martin anymore. Let's talk about this past weekend. Denny Hamlin got win number 61, and Toyotas were strong all weekend. Toyota made a statement that they've been strong all year, right? Tyler Reddick won the first three races. We did throw a Ford in there last week with Ryan Blaney, but Toyota has been the crop of the field, and frankly, every Toyota but Legacy Motor Club has shown the capability of potentially winning. But Denny Hamlin getting win 61. Obviously, there was a lot of emotion there. It's the first win since the tragic fire that took the life of his father and gave his mother severe injuries. She was there at the track, and they shared a wonderful moment. And that was awesome. That was cool to see. I know there's a lot of people that aren't Denny Hamlin guys. I'm not either. I've never been his biggest fan. But it's impossible to root against him right now, right? And so to see that was pretty cool. And then win number 61, it passes Kevin Harvick to crack into the top 10 all time of the Cup Series winners. Freddie tuning in, we appreciate you, Freddie. You've been a tried and true believer in pretty much everything producer Peyton and I do, and we can't thank you enough. And yeah, it's. The old dog still can hunt. But I got to thinking about this. I got to thinking about Denny Hamlin getting win number 61. Is he the last one to get to 60 wins? You know, he's now 2 away from Kyle Busch, who's been stuck on 63 for quite some time, since early in his tenure at RCR. Is he the last one that's going to get to 60? Nobody else really looks within spitting distance of it. You know, could Joey Logano do it? He'd have to go on quite a tear. Chase Elliott's got, 21? Ryan Blaney, 18. Denny Hamlin could be the last driver to get 60 wins. Why do I say that? Because we're playing at such a different ball game now. The parity is NASCAR has intentionally created parity, right? And we can talk all day about the great things of that and the bad things of that, but they have done it. And so we could be witnessing some more history than we even realize. Like, Denny Hamlin has a ton of history. Denny Hamlin is one of the all-time greats of the sport. He has certainly surpassed Mark Martin as the greatest driver without a championship. And he still could get that championship. Will he? Won't he? That's a different show. But we could be witnessing the last guy to be in this echelon, maybe ever. Obviously, the sport will continue to change, and it'll look different. And I'm sure in 10 years, the sport will look like something that I can't even picture. And I don't mean that as a bad thing. I just mean the landscape changes all the time. And so the landscape changes all the time. And so I wonder if Denny is the last guy to get 60. Freddie says he thinks Larson's going to get to 40 wins in Cup, but that's about as far as it goes. Yeah, I don't look at anybody and go, yeah, they're going to get 60 wins. Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin are they're kind of the last leaves on the tree as far as that go, right? Like, I mean, I just don't look at anybody and go, yeah, they're going to go on that. And could I be shocked? Could Chase Elliott do it? Could Kyle Larson do it? Could Ryan Blaney do it? Yeah, they could do it. Could Joey Logano do it? Yeah, he could. But in this era of parity, in this era of we want to put a blanket on the field, and they're damn good at that. And that is why Tyler Reddick's opening 3-race winning streak, is as impressive as it is. Like, it's cool any era, don't get me wrong. But in this era, boy, you are really doing something right, because NASCAR is actively trying to avoid that. And that isn't some anti-2311 conspiracy. That's just, as a sport, they want different winners. They want some wild cards. They want some didn't see that comings. That's what they want. And if you don't believe that, every decision they've made is very centered toward that in recent years. That being said, Las Vegas overall, I got to tell you, I thought was a bit of a snoozer. I expected a much better race. Mile and a half has been the bread and butter of this car, and I just thought it was again, not every race is going to be exciting. I know I say that ad nauseum on this show, but I say it because it's true, right? That's why I say it. Is like I respect the fact that not every race is going to be super duper exciting. I am extremely surprised, though, that a mile and a half was not extremely exciting. I expected a little more chaos, a little more, some bigger runs, some bigger changes, some bigger, Chase Elliott made a run there at the end, and at certain points looked like he might even potentially really give Denny a run for the money. Was not to be. I'm not shocked by Chevy starting a little slow. They made some minor body modifications, and I know that if you took a mirror and held up the cars, you could barely see a difference, but any difference is huge in NASCAR, as we all know. The O'Reilly race was better than the Cup race. I don't think you're alone in that, Freddie. I don't think you're alone in that. Yeah, I was surprised to see Vegas not kind of bring it, right? Vegas has produced some good racing over the years, but especially I think in this car, mile and a half. I think this car, I think it's bread and butter. And so I was really surprised and kind of let down that Vegas wasn't kind of a more exciting show. Denny Hamlin pretty much dominated the day, right? Led 134 laps, I believe. It was pretty much the Denny Delivers show back in the day if he still had FedEx. Denny, in some ways, think about it. In some ways, he's won 4 out of the first 5 because he's the co-owner in 2311. Tyler Reddick won the first 3. Ryan Blaney got in there, and then now Denny Hamlin. So Denny Hamlin is pretty much. We might want to put a parking placard up in Victory Lane for him at this point. So Denny Hamlin getting to know Victory Lane as an owner and certainly a driver. Christopher Bell won stage 1. William Byron won stage 2. Again, Chase Elliott made a solid run at the end, but it really wasn't much, right? It was Denny, Chase Elliott, William Byron, Christopher Bell, and Tyson Gibbs bringing home P5. He did have a strong weekend. Do want to shout him out. He looks like he's getting close to maybe getting that first win. I think he gets it this year. I know that there's some people that are not necessarily big believers in Ty Gibbs, and I know his disposition and attitude leaves a little bit to be desired. I get that, but I think the kid's going to win. I think he'll win this year, and I'm not saying that necessarily his behavior or attitude will improve, but I think he'll silence some doubters this year and get a win or two. And I say win or two because we all know that once you get the proverbial monkey off the back and get that first win, it's always a little easier. It gives you that confidence boost, and confidence is anything for anybody in life, but certainly when you're a young guy like him. So Ty Gibbs, another strong showing. Got to shout it out to him. I think you're getting close to seeing him break through in victory lane. I know that some people will be that will meagerly disappoint some folks, but I'm sure Ty has his fans as well because Lord knows his grandfather does. The other big thing that came out of Vegas on track Cup Series wise is Chastain versus Suarez, the former teammates. After some contact on track, Chastain gave Suarez the middle finger. They got into it a little bit. We're going to break down that a little bit more when we get into checkered thoughts. But I'll just quickly say in summary at this moment that I think this is clearly some personal frustration that has blown over. I don't think this has much to do with the on-track incident at all. We can say it is. That might have been what triggered it, but clearly there's been some repressed feelings between Chastain and Torres over the years, and I think for whatever reason that contact at Vegas brought it all to the surface, and now we are, certainly Daniel Suarez is letting Chastain have it in the media. We're going to break that down later more on Checkered Thoughts, so stay tuned for that. In the O'Reilly race, the NASCAR O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, Kyle Larson won. Remember, he came down, he filled in for, he's going to fill in for Bowman. Justin Allgaier won both stages, not overly surprising. I thought it was a better race, as Freddie said. It's just, again, very surprising that the Cup Series did not kind of bring it, if you will. Larson he had the speed on long runs, and that really separated him. But there were multiple contenders. Junior Motorsports and RCR they were competitive. It was strategy cycles, but again, it was just more lively than the Cup Series race. Kyle Larson continuing to do what Kyle Larson does when it comes down to the lower series. At IndyCar, they had a historic event, the streets of Arlington, right outside Cowboy Stadium. I watched a bit of this as I continue to deal with some personal matters with my brother, who is improving, by the way. Just, we still are taking our time with him and going to see him and all that. Kyle Kirkwood got it done. And so I thought this was a really cool looking event. The streets of Arlington, it got a lot of buzz for IndyCar, and they need that. Certainly anything close to Jerry's World, right? The Jerry Jones is something that gets attention, right? Say what you want about Jerry Jones. A lot of people like him. A lot of people hate him. Anything that is in his range down there in the Arlington, Dallas area is going to get some attention, right? I mean, he's got the Netflix docu-series, The Gambler and His Cowboys. I thought this was good pub for IndyCar, right? I mean, they certainly are still playing catch up to NASCAR as far as kind of being top dog in North America. And we saw the great merch sales that reportedly Arlington had that only compared to the Indy 500 for the rest of the schedule typically. And so I thought this was fun to see, something different. It's something that I go, boy, NASCAR ought to think about that. Because that's an important market. That is a very important market, and quite frankly, we know that Texas Motor Speedway leaves a little bit to be desired. But IndyCar is really good at kind of creating these happening events the last few years. I mean, we're going to see it with the America 250 in August. I mean, I don't care what your view is on how it come about and who the president is or any of those things. America 250, that race is going to be a cool event, a happening. That's going to be a really big show, a really cool. I mean, I think it's going to do big numbers. I mean, they might give NASCAR a run for the money that weekend. I think that's going to be a major show, and Roger Penske and crew have really proven they're pretty good at setting up races at these areas, and pretty much going on without a hitch. Frankly, it made me go, why didn't NASCAR consult Roger Penske more during the street course for Chicago? Maybe they are consulting him for the naval base in San Diego, because clearly the captain and his crew, they know how to set it up and make it happen. Again, you can argue the quality of the races if you want to see races on the streets of Arlington or anywhere, but it looked logistically a lot easier and a lot smoother than Chicago ever did. So credit to them. I think it's cool for IndyCar because they need those happenings, so to speak. Again, Justin Allgaier won both stages in the Xfinity race, and then in F1, A.K. Antonelli won. So that's pretty much your rundown of the weekend. There is a lot to get to, but I want to take a quick break, and then we'll get to it. When we come back, going to talk about Daniel Dye. Going to talk about kind of how complicated all that is, and that whole incident. And I'm going to give my full thoughts on it. We're going to talk about Throwback Weekend. We're going to talk about some other news. We're going to break down more of the Chastain Suarez saga, if you will. And so don't move. We're going to take a quick break. When we do, we're going to hit Hot Lab headlines. And again, we have a lot to chit chat about. So until just a moment, go grab yourself a beverage, then come on back. We're gonna brand a little bit. I'll see you in just a moment.
Tired of missing that big play? Fed up with waiting hours for the wrap-up? The local scene deserves more. Heart-pounding. Game-changing. Homegrown. C-Bus Sports. C-Bus Sports brings you live updates, in-depth analysis, and local athlete spotlights all in one place. From high school to pro, they cover the games that matter to you. Get inside access from the locker room to the starting line. Meet the players that Columbus roots for. This is more than sport, it's our community. It's every kid in cleats, every team in the stands, and every fan who bleeds their colors. C-Bus Sports is here for the passion, the pride, and the hometown story. Go to cbussports.com today and be the first in the know. C-Bus Sports. The game doesn't wait, and neither should you.
All right, hi, hello, welcome back to the Racing Angle, and I'm Logan Morris. I'm your host. Do want to remind you, if you don't follow us on the social media, give us a like, give us a share, give us a follow, subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. We appreciate every single one of them. We did cross 100 subscribers a bit ago, and I do want to make a personal note. As my brother continues to improve, and thankfully he is, we're going to get back to posting those videos on news and kind of breaking down, certain pieces of news and press releases like we usually have. The lull in that has been dealing with personal matters with my brother as his health continues to improve. Again, we've gotten wonderful, wonderful news on that front. Don't want to paint that any other way. Just it still takes some time to go see him while he recovers. So again, follow us on all the social media. We got X, we got Instagram, we got TikTok. Of course, we got Facebook, and you can follow me personally at Loganity. You see my @ right there on the X machine, but especially follow the X of the Racing Angle. I'll give some racing thoughts as the weeks go on, especially as I'm able to kind of hunker back down and watch races in the comfort of the Loganity Lounge. So thank you for your patience and your support. We do appreciate it. And most importantly, your thoughts and prayers from my brother and my family as he recovers from a serious health setback. Do me a great favor. Just keep those coming. We greatly appreciate that more than you could possibly ever know. With that, let's get back into racing, and let's get into some hot lap headlines. All righty. I do my best every week here on the Racing Angle to kind of shy away from some of the controversial topics. Everybody's got an opinion, and they're entitled to it, right? This is, especially right here in America, you are entitled to your opinion. Freddie, I'm sure the same goes for you in Canada and anywhere else. Everyone's got opinion on these tough situations. So just want to bear that in mind before we get into the topic. The biggest scuttlebutt and talk right now in the NASCAR world is not Vegas. It's not. It is not the unofficial throwback weekend now of Darlington. It is certainly what is going on with Daniel Dye. That is what's lighting up the Reddit circles, the X circles, it's so. All right, let's talk about it. I want to paint this just right. Daniel Dye has been suspended indefinitely for insensitive comments on a Whatnot stream. AJ Allmendinger is going to drive for Colleague Racing this weekend at the Darlington Truck Series race. Okay. All right. Obviously, especially in NASCAR circles, this is a controversial thing. We've seen it in the past with Kyle Larson, Haley Deegan to varying degrees. If you didn't see the Whatnot stream, Daniel Dye made some insensitive remarks and some insensitive comments that, in my estimation, were pretty foolish on his part, and pretty insensitive on his part. And now, don't get me wrong. Did he say any horrible thing? No, and that should be noted and taken into account, and we should acknowledge that as well. However, it can also be said, because I think there's not enough nuance in the world on things of this nature, of these person opens their mouth and kind of inserts foot situations. I'm not a big cancel culture guy, but we also have to acknowledge the moment and the time that we're in, and we also have to acknowledge the moment and the circumstances that individual is in. Daniel Dye is somebody whose resume is not, quite frankly, the greatest. And he already has kind of one strike against him from that battery charge he has when he was 18. Now, I don't want to hold anything against anybody that did when they're 18 forever. I mean, look, we all do some really stupid things when we're 18. And so I don't want to factor in too much on that. But I just think all this was pretty foolish by Daniel Dye. You know that you're on a live stream. You have Colleague Racing gear on, and you have to know time and place. Like, it would be a smidgen different if you weren't literally in an official working capacity. It would still be insensitive and stupid, but you literally have team gear on. You know you're on camera, and you choose to go on that bit of a diatribe that was I'm not going to get into the insensitive comments. If you want to see them, you can look it up. The video's all over X and Reddit and everywhere else at this point. But yeah, I think a lot of things can be true at the same time. I think it was stupid and foolish on Daniel Dye and insensitive and just not smart given time, place, and quite frankly, resume. Of Daniel Dye. He already has a bit of a questionable past and is trying to kind of work his way back from that, or kind of lose that shadow. Then he does this, and again, you know you're on camera. You know you're on a live stream. Why? We've all said some really foolish things in our life. I am no saint, let me tell you that right now, folks. But to know you're on camera, to know you're in an official working capacity, again, he's got Colleague gear on. You put that uniform on in any way, shape, fashion, form, you are representing the sponsors that you represent. And whether we like it or not, the colleague has the right to fire or whatever it may be, suspend if that's what they see fit. Now, all that being said, here's another truth, because again, there's not enough nuance. He apologized and he deserves a path back. All right, he didn't even say a slur. He made some insensitive comments in an insensitive voice, and he shouldn't have. Again, very stupid, very foolish. But I don't think it should be a career ender by any stretch. And I think the people that get on X or get on Facebook or get on social media and act like the pitchfork should be out for him, I think you need to go outside, a little bit more. It's a pretty mean and sensitive world. And so he has sponsors and things to live up to. And like I said, the reality is Daniel Dye is not somebody with the resume that can afford this kind of mistake. And you might say, well, nobody can afford this kind of mistake. Yes, but because he already has a bit of a checkered past, already has that incident, and his resume is not that great. He's done nothing to say that, man, this guy is an all-around talent where he makes it a hard decision. And if you don't think that factors into a lot of people, I mean, look at Kyle Larson. He said far worse, but he is an undeniable talent. There should be a path back. One of my big issues with cancel culture, personally, is we don't come up with a path back. Yes, he screwed up. Yes, he should own that for quite some time. However, I don't believe that he should be defined by that, especially because, again, no slur was thrown around. It was an insensitive voice and insensitive comments, and that should be noted as well. Paint the full picture. But let's give him some time and give him some grace and hopefully give him a path back, because if we're not a society with forgiveness, then what's the point? And so all these things can be true. You can make an argument that some are too sensitive. Okay, whatever. There's an argument to be made for that. I think there's some validity to it. But the reality is, when you're a public figure like Daniel Dye, that's the risk you take. Every job you have in life has sacrifices. If you want to be, and nothing against the average American, the average everyday person that is the backbone of this world and society and country, if you want to be that, awesome. Then you can pretty much say whatever you want, not have to worry about repercussions at your job overall, unless it's particularly heinous. But if you want to be in NASCAR, if you want to be in media, if you want to be a public figure, you either have to be so big that you can't be ignored and canceled, or, which isn't the case for let's say 90% of public figures, or you can be probably like Daniel Dye is, where he is a public figure, but he is also very replaceable. And that's the standard you got to meet. Every job has got their sacrifices. You want to be in NASCAR, you want to be a public figure, you want to drive for Colleague and Ram, and there's a price for that. Everybody says, well, they live a charmed life in this, and they make more money than I'll ever see, and they do. And they do. And the price for that is, guess what? If you put your foot in your mouth, unless you are just too big, too good to ignore, too much money, too much fame, too much whatever, you're going to pay a price when you do that, when you have those moments. Freddie says we're all human beings, all make mistakes. He apologized. Again, not like some major awful slur was thrown around, and I'm certainly not a holier than thou guy. I've said some stupid things in my time. So I do think there should be a path back. He should certainly pay a price. I'm not arguing that. But one of the things I don't like about our pitchfork society right now, and this has been this way for, I would say, about the last decade or so, give or take, is we're really quick to go, well, that guy's got to go, but we can't tell you when he's going to come back. Suspended indefinitely. Well, that implies certainly more than Darlington. And I'm not saying that's not right or fair, but is he going to miss the rest of the season and have no shot to make a good impression for other teams? Should colleague, um, decide they want to part ways with him fully? I guess everyone will say, "Well, you should have thought about that when da 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 da." You can only handle problem once it's there. The whole "you should have thought about that" argument is pretty lame. It's pretty lame. Like, well, shouldn't have forgotten milk at the store, but you did. So then you got to handle the fact that you forgot milk at the store. He shouldn't have done it, but he did. So now you got to handle it. We've seen this in recent years in memory with NASCAR. Kyle Larson is probably the most famous example. Quite frankly, it's worked out for him. I mean, without that, he doesn't get the Hendrick opportunity. And frankly, it's probably one of the biggest what ifs in Stewart-Haas history. If Ford would have been okay, Stewart-Haas probably hires Kyle Larson, and would they still be in business? Great question. Noah Gregson, Legacy Motor Club, posted the insensitive meme and got suspended for like half the year and ended up losing the ride, and now he's at front row, and that whole deal. Denny Hamlin had to do sensitivity training. This is not uncommon for people to do something stupid, because we're all human and we all do something stupid. It just depends on the varying degrees of stupidity. So, yes, I think colleague has got a right to impose a punishment that they see fit. Yes, I think Daniel Dye was extremely stupid and insensitive and foolish and very unaware of time and place. But I also believe that he said he was sorry, and he deserves the right to prove that's a real apology, and he deserves another opportunity, especially when you consider the actual subject of those comments. I think all these things can be true, and I understand those that will outcry and say, well, his freedom of speech, I get you, I feel you, but that does not imply freedom of consequence. And that's the way the cookie crumbles. And if he or anybody else doesn't like that, then you might not want to be a public figure, because, again, that's the price you pay. All these things can be true. He deserves another chance. He should not have said it. There should be a path back. But it was really, really foolish, especially when you consider the fact that he's got a past incident too, so he should really be behaving himself extra. But again, I'm a believer in human beings. I'm a believer in growth, and I apply that to myself, and I apply that to everybody else. And where there is life, there is hope. And so let's hope that Daniel Dye learns from this. Let's hope that society and NASCAR and racing as a whole is kind enough and fair enough to give him another opportunity down the line. And let's hope he comes out better for it as a human being. And maybe we can talk about what a cool redemption story this is in a couple of years. That would be really nice. That's just my take. If you disagree with me, that's fine. Leave your comments down below. Just don't be hateful about it. And that's cool. We're all entitled to this thing called our opinion, and this sort of thing is a very difficult topic. And so I don't know if anybody's right or wrong on this deal. It's just your opinion of it. So AJ Allmendinger is going to drive for colleague. That doesn't surprise me, right? He's like Mr. Colleague at this point. And so good for him. I think you'll see, because, again, the suspension indefinitely for Daniel Dye implies more than just one race. I would certainly say it's going to be several races, if not the rest of the season. We'll see if that's what takes place. I think you'll see a rotating cast. I don't think Allmendinger will do every truck race. I think you'll see a lot of Ty Dillon probably, and maybe that's where someone like Corey LaJoie jumps in and gets a bigger opportunity, because that's another thing to consider, right? For every time that somebody like Daniel Dye, who, again, no disrespect, doesn't exactly have a Hall of Fame resume right now. Whether you agree or disagree with his take or what should not happen, there are a ton of guys that don't have that history, that don't have now that baggage, that are waiting for an opportunity. And so if your colleague, there are people kicking down your door going, we didn't say what he did. And so it can sometimes be easier to just go, let's start fresh. Because like I said, Daniel Dye, no disrespect to him, I wish him well, doesn't have a resume that makes this decision very hard. And you might say, well, that shouldn't matter, but it also always does. And so that's another thing to consider is there's a lot of guys that'll gladly move heaven and earth and behave themselves like Boy Scouts to get that opportunity. And that's just something that everybody has to think about in today's society. Alex Bowman is going to be out at least the next 3 races due to his vertigo. Justin Allgaier going to continue to sub. We talked a lot about Alex Bowman last week. I got to say, this just number one, and I don't want to throw anything out there that is absolutely false and not provable, but it just, the last time we saw Alex Bowman, he was struggling hardcore at COTA, and now he's got vertigo. I just, did something else go on there? Is there a concussion involved? It's just an odd circumstance. And again, we know this feels like a fish or cut bait year for Alex Bowman. And so this just, if you're Alex Bowman and you want to stay at Hendrick, and I'm sure you are because it's Hendrick, this could not be going worse. This could not be going worse because Freddie, you're right, it doesn't look good for Bowman. Yeah, doesn't at all. I mean, think about it. I mean, his championship chances are non-existent. I mean, you'd have to go on an incredible tear. Say he misses only the next 3 races, you'd have to go on an incredible tear to even think about getting 16th. And that's still 100 points out of the championship. This just could not be going worse. Number one, my hope is that Alex Bowman will get right and get okay and be able to come back and race for Hendrick this year, and then should that be next year or somewhere else next year, and really get a fresh start, whether that be at Hendrick or somewhere else. Because again, I got news, people. Now, some people might laugh at this, but if he proves himself to be healthy and is a free agent next year, lower B and C tier teams will fall over themselves to have a guy that's got wins on the resume. He's had a long relationship with good sponsors like Ally. He overall behaves himself. He fits a lot of the mold you want nowadays. Again, he's proven he can win. Maybe not as much as you'd like to see, but he certainly can win. He finds a way to have long-standing relationships with the sponsors he has. In today's era of NASCAR, there are teams that will fall over themselves to absolutely just, line them up. Legacy's getting the 3rd car next year. That's official now. Jimmy Johnson. You think they wouldn't take a look? Think they wouldn't try? RCR might have an open seat. We'll see what happens with Kyle Busch. You think they wouldn't take a look? I mean, I think everybody that is a B and C tier team would be looking at Alex Bowman. That's if he's healthy. That's if he's good to go. Because my concern, and this is purely speculative on my part, I want to be clear. My concern is, are we looking at kind of a Dale Jr. situation where it's obvious that he's getting close to needing to get out of the car, at least on a full-time basis? Because, people say to me, because I've said to some buddies, this feels very like Dale Jr. to me. And as you know, that's how Alex Bowman got his shot at Hendrick, right? He split that ride with Jeff Gordon the year that Dale Jr. really struggled with concussion symptoms. Pardon me. And so, um, and so for me, I wonder, is it something where he's got to start looking at maybe it's time to get out of the car, maybe one more year, and then select races here and there, a la Dell Jr. Um, I, I just I don't know, but that is my concern as this goes on and on and on and on and on. Now everybody's different, right? Dale Jr. had a lot to think about. He's got a family. He's got this. He's got that. I'm sure Amy played a factor, and I'm not saying that in a negative fashion. Everybody's different. Everybody's circumstance is different. So I'm just concerned that could this spell the end of Alex Bowman in the long run? Because yes, Dale Jr. came back for the big retirement tour. That was awesome. That was wonderful. He was trying to win. He was trying to win a championship, but he did not get to end it on his own terms. And I'm worried that we're getting to that point with Alex Bowman. I really deeply am concerned that we're getting there with Alex Bowman. I hope I'm wrong. I don't have any inside info. It's just a feeling I'm getting. This feels kind of Kurt Busch, Dale Jr.-esque, because you want to see guys go out on their own terms and the way they want to do it, right? And so that is just where I'm at right now. But if he can get healthy, and if for some reason Mr. H does decide to want to go in a different direction, those B and C tier teams will be, I think, falling over themselves. I really do. I mean, I think you could see people wanting to buy a charter, and I think you could see some surprise people boot people that because Alex Bowman is available. I mean, but would Spire Motorsports not be interested in Alex Bowman? I mean, let's be real. If Alex Bowman is readily available, and your choice is another year Daniel Suarez or Alex Bowman, why wouldn't you go Alex Bowman? Assuming he is 100% healthy, good to go, and has no long-term lingering effects, and expects to drive several more years and all that, why wouldn't you? Because I think resume-wise, it's not even close. All right, finally on Hot App Headlines, let's talk some throwbacks. All right, probably the most infamous one is Carson Hocevar is going to throw it back to Dell Sr. back in 1981, I do believe. I got to say, magnifique. And here's why this is cool. We all know that Carson Hocevar is everybody's saying he's got that kind of Dale Sr. vibe to him. And you see Chili's, they certainly are leaning into this marketing wise. That is gold. That is gold. That is cool. My personal favorite, obviously, Eric Jones is going to throw it back to Wally Dahlin back in 1994. I just am personally thrilled by this. I mean, look at that bad boy. Look, Petty Blue on the car. Anytime Petty Blue on the car, I'm in. I am in, and I am in. Petty Blue on this. This is how the 43 should look every single week. Period. The end. Full stop. I don't care who sponsors the 43. They should make this happen every single week. It should have some sort of Petty Blue on it all the time. Especially while the King is still involved with the team. This is how it should look right here. Everybody, Dollar Tree, Admin Health, do your thing. Every week. All right. Had to get that out. Gia Rosario, let's talk about that. Is throwing it back to Del Waltrip in 1995. Trucking. I mean, man, look at that. Look at that. If that doesn't get you ready to say boogity, check your engine and give it some gas. If that doesn't get you ready to do the icky shuffle, check your engine and give it some gas. This is a wonderful throwback, and it's just proof that despite NASCAR's best efforts, you can't kill throwback weekend, and you shouldn't even try. You shouldn't even try. Another really cool throwback. Another really cool throwback. How about Zane Smith throwing it back to Elliott Sadler? I think that's an underrated one. Going back to those Wood Brothers years for Elliott Sadler. Nice to see, that Ford. I think that's an underrated nice one right there. I really do. But I'm a little biased to the Wood Brothers, so maybe that's just me. I know Justin Seeger, Running on Scuffs, likes that as well. He's a big Elliott Sadler guy. So obviously RFK. Let's talk about RFK. They're all throwing it back to Greg Biffle. All three of them are throwing it back to Greg Biffle, and that's just really cool. How about that? How about that 17? How about that 17? Look how gorgeous that is. Look how gorgeous that is. If you don't dig that, something's wrong with you. The 60, I love it because it's Oscar Mayer, right? I mean, Oscar Mayer's been part of the Roush relationships from Brian Newman a few years ago now. I think we ought to have a hot dog at Darlington. What do you say? We ought to have a hot dog at Darlington. And then how about this 6? This is probably my personal favorite. This 6. And good for the Cat in the Hat and Brad K making this happen. Brendan Poole also throwing it back to Greg Biffle. And honestly, when I think Greg Biffle as a driver, this is the car I think of. So this is really cool for me. There's a lot of great throwbacks this weekend on the unofficial throwback weekend. Again, it's not technically throwback weekend anymore. They're trying to, according to Dale Jr., they're trying to focus more on the people that are alive, that are actually alive and can still focus. They're wanting to focus on the individuals instead of the paint schemes. And I think that's pretty cool. But I hope that we bring back an official throwback weekend eventually. And personally, I'd like to see it at the Southern 500. Because Darlington is the original super speedway. And so give that puppy all it's worth. This is my favorite track on the circuit. I couldn't be more excited for this weekend. All right, as we keep moving it along, and there's other cool throwbacks, by the way, throughout the series, but those were some of the ones I wanted to spotlight. As we keep moving along, let's hit some Checkered Thoughts. All right, Checkered Thoughts. This is where I said I want to get more into the Daniel Suarez Ross Chastain beef. Daniel Suarez had a lot to say in the media this week. Post race, he said, I was having a conversation and he was all spun out. He was upset or something. I mean, for some reason, our relationship has always been very, very weird, almost like a bit of two-faced on his part for some reason. And today I saw actually what I thought he had in his mind for a while. But I mean, I don't have any hard feelings to anyone. I'm just doing my thing, having a great time. But it sounds like he thinks that way. But listen, it's not my first rodeo. I have to go through a lot to be able to get to this point. And that's just who I am, and that's the journey I've had to take to be able to come from a different country, so that's just part of it. Chastain, for his part, declined to comment after the race. All right. So, a lot there. There's going to be even more. But I think this is because I saw the contact they had at Vegas. I'm not saying you wouldn't get a little peeved, but it ain't worth all this hubbub. it ain't worth all this hubbub at all. That tells me that this is emotions boiling over, that there was some tension at Trackhouse under Justin Marks and at the time Pitbull. That tells me there was just some now what was that tension? What were those disagreements? We'll likely never know. But clearly, this is about something that has been festering for a while between the two of them. Because if they were that hot over that contact, I got news. You're in the wrong series. This is about something much deeper. That unfortunately I think just blew up. Sometimes the smallest thing when you're hot, when you're already kind of displeased with that person, can get way blown out of proportion when it's not even really about that. And I think that's what this is. It's a classic case, in my opinion. Because then Daniel Suarez went on Sirius XM radio, and he laid out why he didn't try to fight Chastain on pit road. Here's some more quotes. To punch him or put him on the ground, it was going to cost me $50,000. The sponsors never like that. The sponsors like exposure, but they don't like bad media and bad PR. If I want to fight Ross, and he knows this, he's not going to last 5 seconds. So what am I going to gain from that? Daniel Suarez up in the kitchen cooking. I mean, wow. To act like that, I mean, he would just take out Ross like that. When we saw Ross lay one in Noah Gragson a couple years ago. Yeah, again, I think this is just boiled, festered over emotion, and sometimes that happens. Sometimes you don't click with somebody for some reason, or you did, and then all of a sudden something happens, and it just festers because you don't probably have that man-to-man you should have had at the time whenever it started happening. Because I'm sure there were some. If you're Daniel Suarez, let's look at it from his perspective. You know that you've had to go through a lot of rides in your career, and I think that is mostly on him. But I'm sure there's a part of him that rightfully or wrongfully is pretty chapped about the fact that Trackhouse clearly has chosen Ross as the anchor driver over anybody, but certainly over Daniel Suarez, who now is at Spire. There's going to be some bitterness about that because, Trackhouse, I don't know if they're the hot new team they once were, but it feels like a better ride than Spire. Feels like. I'm not saying it is. We'll see at the end of the year. And so I think there's some bitterness, there's some emotion. And quite frankly, if you're Daniel Suarez, you should be pissed off. I don't mean about the on-track incident. I mean about the fact that everybody keeps choosing somebody over you. The fact that you keep coming up short in these opportunities and make yourself replaceable. And so I think it's a manifestation of all those emotions. Probably something that happened between the two of them at Trackhouse, or maybe it was just never that smooth, or maybe it was and then it no longer is. And then again, Suarez has become a journeyman, no doubt about that, right? I mean, it feels like eons ago that he drove for Gibbs and Stewart Haas because it was. And so I think that emotion is getting the better of him. I think all of it is getting the better of him. We'll see if that continues or if that was just the way it is. All right, as we narrow down the show, let's make some predictions. Let's get to our lap ahead. All right, let's get to our lap ahead. We're at Throwback Weekend. I like Throwback Weekend. I sure do. This is my favorite track on the circuit. All right, the Cup race. Well, not to be a homer, but let's go bet and be a homer. We're at Darlington, right? You know who's really good at Darlington? Eric Jones is really good at Darlington. You know who's got Petty Blue on the card this weekend? Eric Jones in the 43. Give me Eric Jones in the 43 to go back to victory lane because, damn it, why not? Damn it, Toyota's been so strong. This is the track. This is the place. This is where Eric Jones separates kind of the men from the boys, if you will. Give me Eric Jones, damn it. In the NASCAR O'Reilly Series, look, I think there's a lot of great options here. I really do. But I don't want to overthink it. So give me Kyle Larson. It's Kyle Larson. That's why. He can ride that wall better than anybody. Trucks, call me inspired by the throwback, and I'm going to be. But give me Gio Rosario. Why not? In that 1995 throwback DW. Why not? That's what I'm going to go with. We also have racing out at Phoenix for the NHRA, out at Arizona. I think in Top Fuel, I see no reason why Josh Hart doesn't continue with his hot start. But in Funny Car, I think Austin Prock is going to come back with a bang, and I think he wins in Arizona. I think he missed the first race. He missed the show of the Gator National, so to speak. I think he's going to answer that in a big way this weekend. And Pro Stock, look, there is never any reason to bet against Greg Anderson. I'm not going to start now. Give me Greg Anderson and that HendrickCars.com Pro Stock, and then Pro Stock Motorcycle. Look, Gage Ferreira is always, in my opinion, the man to beat. Freddie, you're after my heart, and I love you for it. Yes, sir. With that, let's go ahead and get to our final lap. All right, folks, another hour has come and gone somehow, some way. Freddie, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate you. And look, we just appreciate everybody for tuning in and listening. And I appreciate all the prayers and the good vibes and the thoughts, the positive thoughts for my brother as he continues to recover. And that is the key. Yes, he is recovering. It's just going to be a process. And we thank God for that. And thank you, Producer Peyton, back there on the ones and twos. Hopefully we'll have you back on screen next week. Until next time, everybody, enjoy Darlington, enjoy the throwback week, enjoy the NHRA. We got motorsports back in a big way. We got IMSA this weekend. Just enjoy all of it because it's going to be a ton of fun, and we're going to break as much of it down as we can right here on the Racing Angle. And don't forget to follow us on our socials. You can get them down below. We appreciate all of our subscribers and all of our supporters. Thank you. And until next time, until next week, until next Wednesday, we'll see you at the next track.